tell us what is your role, what's your connection to this TFA thing?
So I am the Executive Director of the 4-H Learning Centers with the University of Maine Cooperative Extension. I was one of the people that about 10 years ago envisioned the Telstar Freshman Academy as a collaboration between our experiential and outdoor learning site and the local school district, SAD 44.
So what led to that vision? What was the need you were hoping to fulfill?
Yeah, so the school district was trying to address similar challenges to every school district in the state, which are, student engagement, attendance, graduation rates, those kinds of things. The transition from grade 8 to 9 is a challenge everywhere. That's a point where many students start to falter or thrive, one or the other. And so the vision was to design a program that would be both academically rigorous and engaging, interdisciplinary, so combining standards from science and English language arts and social studies and PE and all into cross-disciplinary units that would be super engaging and lots of outdoor time, community connections, just really the best of experiential and academic learning all rolled into one. And then combine all of that with a real nurturing environment that was to some degree separate from the school building and create that sense of community and bonds with teachers and peers that lead to success later in high school.
So talk about just UMaine, like what does UMaine get out of this? Why is UMaine involved at all with the high school in Bethel?
Sure. Well, the 4-H Youth Development Program is it's actually the largest out-of-school youth development program in the state of Maine. We also have lots of in-school partnerships across our 4-H Learning Center network and the 4-H Youth Development Program. When specifically to here at Bryant Pond, when we merged with 4-H back in 2008, we really set it as the goal to continue to do our open enrollment 4-H summer camps and things like that, but also to be a real, true year-round learning center and a partner to our local school districts. And so we started building those relationships, and that led in around 2000, I'm going to falter on this, 2014, I believe, 2014, to the founding of the Telstar Freshman Academy to collaborate on addressing some of those challenges. As I was saying to you earlier, Derek, we had experimented with, let me back up, we had started a program partnering with the Oxford Hills School District previously, and that was serving 7th and 8th graders. That was an experiential learning program combining academic standards with outdoor skills and just real world experiences. And that was highly successful. So we had that success story to build off of when we designed and implemented the Telstar Freshman Academy.
How can other high schools create partnerships like this?
Yeah, I think, community resources are different everywhere, and I wish there was a 4-H learning center in every single, rural community in Maine. But, I think building community partnerships with organizations, whether they're youth serving or not, is really key. I think it's fair to say that schools cannot do everything. They can't be all things to all people. The challenges for public schools are bigger than ever, serving kids in so many different ways, including their mental health and their social emotional development and academic progress and all of those things. And I think really building community partnerships is the key to success with that.
What challenges or obstacles has the program faced, particularly in the first couple of years?
Yeah, I would say in the first couple of years, folks were, it was new, and I think if you were to ask some of the parents, for example, what did you envision for your child as they went through their high school career, as they entered high school? What we would hear back then is, something very similar to what they experienced in high school. And So this model was, you know, really innovative and really new, and that took a little time to adjust to. We were firm in our principles that this is what's best for kids, learning in this way, in this environment, outdoors and in truly engaging ways, relevance to our local community, organizations, and partners. You know, when these guys design projects, they're often solving real-world problems and then presenting those solutions to authentic audiences. So we stuck with those principles, moved forward, and at this point, the Telstar Freshman Academy is, by and large, really embraced by this community. 100% of the students at Telstar High School have, you know, all the way through the grade levels have been through it. So we've had many generations, and you know, especially as they get to their junior and senior year and then move on to what's next after high school, almost 100% of them look back on this experience at TFA and reflect with a lot of fondness and a lot of learning. They understand that this was a place where they really grew as people and got onto a good path in life.
Why do we need this program?
Yeah, it's well documented that the transition from grades 8 to 9 is a challenging time period for adolescents. There's a term that we've, you know, read about and read the literature on that's called aspirational foreclosure. So at some point in the first semester or first third of ninth grade, young people often form a sense of identity about where they're headed into the future. Am I college bound? Am I not? Am I you know, thought of as a successful student? And so our goal really was to change the narrative about what ninth grade really is. The goal was to set up a situation where every single student was valued and included, and the group work that these students do in small groups on projects is probably the best, not only academic but also social learning that we could possibly give them. It's the way the real world actually works. You have to collaborate with other people who are not necessarily your best friends, and who maybe learn differently and have different backgrounds and perspectives. So we set out to design a program that would provide all of those opportunities for, again, both the, you know, rigorous academic standards as well as those social opportunities. And we think it's the way to do high school, frankly.
And what's your evidence it's working?
Yeah, I mean, our evidence that it's working is that our students, again, when they get to their junior and senior years, we hear back from our students that have graduated and gone on to college that, you know, even though, just like any ninth grade experience, they maybe didn't love every single second of the TFA, what they recognize is how much they grew as people, how much being a part of this environment and this program set them up for success, both in their social emotional learning and health, as well as, again, learning those skills of collaboration, innovation. I think the other thing that we hear from students and have documented is that the community connections, the experiential opportunities, for example, this group has been to a trip to the University of Maine at Orono. They've been over to the coast of Maine and had, you know, focused learning opportunities that are outside of Oxford County, outside of their comfort zones in many ways, and that it's expanded their horizons. And, you know, we know that because we know it anecdotally and we know it from looking at the data.
Anything you would say, you know, what is the secret sauce of the program? Like, why does it work?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's unusual, as we said earlier, to have a close partnership like this between a nonprofit youth development organization and a public school district. I think the key is a high level of trust. It's the relationships that our two organizations have built over many years. I think that you know, we truly collaborate. We don't make decisions in a vacuum. We truly collaborate, whether it's a curriculum decision, a behavioral situation with a student, major changes in, budget and different things like that are all shared transparently. So if I was speaking to either folks in my sector, in the nonprofit youth development, youth serving organizations out there, or to public school administrators, it would be, take the time to build those types of relationships, base them on trust and transparency, and great things can come from that.
Can you think of individual stories or moments that best represent the program's success over time?
Yeah, I can. So there was a few years ago, I was actually giving a tour for a few school board members here, and it was the fall, and we were doing a food systems unit at that time. We had our gardens in full bloom. Miss Dole's science class was out doing soil testing in the gardens. In the building behind me here, Mr. Bennett's English language arts class was reading the novel of Mice and Men, which is of course about the Dust Bowl. And it was this perfect melding, studying the local food systems in this area, but this perfect melding between what they're studying in science, looking at what happens to an ecosystem when you lose topsoil, through reading this historical novel, and really just making learning come alive. The garage doors were open here, the sun was streaming in, and these school board members took a look around and said, okay, now I get it. I see what you're doing here. It's really, as I just said, it's really making learning come alive for these ninth graders.
How has the program evolved over time and why?
Yeah, I think that we've had many discussions, for example, about whether to make the Telstar Freshman Academy an opt-in program. It is for every ninth grader in this school district. That comes with certain challenges. We've got kids here that are, have always been on a successful academic track. We have other students that are, receiving, special ed services and the whole thing. So it has been challenging. I think we've stuck to those principles and TFA is for everyone. Part of the beauty of the program is that, and we hear this from students all the time, that because of the collaborative aspect of it, the small group nature of the project-based learning, that they are getting to know their fellow students in the ninth grade that they maybe didn't get to know at all in middle school or elementary school because they were in different social circles or what have you. So we've really stuck to those principles. And as a result, we've had to change and evolve and adapt with every new group of students and really build the supports that are necessary to make the program a success.
Why does it matter, do you think, that it's off-site? And why ninth graders off-site?
Yeah.
A totally different place.
Yeah, that's a great question, and to be very honest, it's sometimes a hard question, or it's a question that we get asked a lot of times when folks are looking at budgets and expenses and different things like that. Why do we need to bus students to an off-site location when there's a perfectly good school building, et cetera? I really do think that it is super important in ninth grade, in that 8 to 9 transition, as we said, to kind of press pause on what students have experienced as a traditional classroom environment and to change it up and to do things differently. It's really, really important to that community building aspect that I mentioned earlier, where we're really establishing a sense of respect and support. And then, I think this environment is more conducive based on the resources that we have here at the 4-H Center. We have a lake, we have canoes and all that equipment. We have hiking trails and other outdoor equipment. We have a climbing wall right here in the building. And all of that is just so conducive to that experiential aspect of the program.
project-based and interdisciplinary learning?
Yeah, great question. The project-based and interdisciplinary focus of the curriculum was something that was really important to all of us right off the bat. I really believe strongly that the way traditional classroom learning is set up still in this country, it does not lead to the best outcomes for students. Sometimes, students who are successful learn how to kind of navigate their way through, separate siloed classes, whether it's history and math and, English language arts throughout the year. But I think, the truth is that's not the way the world actually works. It's really important to learn in multidisciplinary ways, to be able to think across disciplines and to collaborate with others who have different skill sets. The team teaching aspect is another thing that this team values greatly. So our structure is a full-time science teacher, full-time English language arts teacher, 2 4-H experiential educators, and then ed techs and special ed support, all collaborating together on the curriculum, on the scheduling, on the planning of off-site experiential learning opportunities, et cetera. And if we weren't doing it that way, if we were doing siloed, if the English class was completely siloed from the science curriculum, it would not lead to these really engaging project-based units that these students have the opportunity to learn from.
What have been your takeaways about how to best do 9th grade from your time here?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that if 9th graders are disengaged, or if students are disengaged from school, if there are attendance problems starting in middle school and those persist into high school, it's really important to ask ourselves the question, what makes you want to be at school? What makes you really excited about getting up in the morning and coming to school? And really listening to those students. The experience of teens has changed so drastically just in the last 5 or 10 years since we've been doing this program. Life has changed for our adolescents in this country, but it's almost unrecognizable from my generation and previous generations. So I think really listening to what is engaging to them versus expecting and even forcing students to conform to a traditional show up at school in the morning and seat time and all of those things. So that's what I mean when I say this is I believe how high school should be done. It's engaged, it's authentic learning, it's real world outcomes, it's outdoor time and fresh air. There certainly needs to be some seat time and some direct instruction. One example is that we really tried to integrate math into the TFA curriculum at first. Turns out you really need a separate, class to effectively teach Algebra 1. It doesn't fit neatly into our project-based units, and so we just said, okay, that's how we're going to do it. Math happens back at the school building. And that's okay. So that's just an example of, how we evolved and learned as we went.
So you could argue over 10 years, teen culture has moved farther away from this than in 2014, right? In the sense that we got cell phones, and
sure.
We have the screenager kind of concept. We got AI. Like, why this in some ways seems counter to what teens want.
Yeah.
Why does place-based learning matter in 2025 when the world is on screens? Yeah,
I mean, it's a great question. The amount of screen time that students are engaging in is, it's just exponentially grown, and it's pretty well documented, all of the challenges and, in terms of mental health and, things like ADHD and all of that are just exacerbated by that. So I think this type of outdoor and experiential learning is even more important than ever. And I think that if you were to ask the students that are here, you know, do you value the time outdoors? How does it make you feel? Do you feel more, you know, more engaged in coming to school? Have you learned things about yourself? You'll hear that they're happy to set the phones aside and, you know, go out canoeing on Lake Christopher in the fall and things like that. So even though they'll say what they really want is to just, you know, be on Instagram and Snapchat, that actually deep down most adolescents really do want this type of structure. They want, you know, to really be engaged in real life and real relationships and real experiences.
And do you think that last question, do you think Maine in particular is a ripe place for more place-based learning?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Maine has obviously incredible natural resources and outdoor opportunities, everything from the coast to the mountains to, you know, the rivers and things like that. And yeah, I also think that there's a culture within schools in Maine of, you know, really innovating and wanting to embrace new challenges in different ways. And, you know, I mentioned earlier partnerships with community-based organizations. There's so many great examples of that. I was involved in the REV program with the Department of Ed for a couple of years and got to support some public school districts in their outdoor learning goals. And, you know, there is just so much good happening in those public school districts in the state of Maine that's along these lines, that's connected to, you know, to re-envisioning what actually works in education.
I lied, one more. Say something in terms of the future of this kind of learning, what that legislation is that you're interested in.
Sure. So we in Cooperative Extension, the 4-H centers, my program area within Extension, we are part of a network of outdoor school organizations. So these are mostly nonprofit entities that are providing school year outdoor learning opportunities, mostly for upper elementary and middle school. So we have this is called the Maine Outdoor School for All Network. We have a bill that is working its way through the legislature right now. It's LD 895. It's an act to establish an outdoor school for all Maine students program. This would provide funding for every student in Maine to have a 2-night, 3-day outdoor school experience at some point between grades 4 through 8, depending on the needs of the district. It would make that experience equitable and free for all. Currently, we're doing these outdoor school programs for somewhere less than 20% of Maine school districts, and we want it to be available to everyone.